And now we just hit record and let it play through. This video is brought to you by Quiztones, my all-time favorite app for learning frequencies. I have just finished a mix, got everything ironed out. It gets a little tricky when you're working with so much analog gear. How do you handle revisions? So artist revisions. Basically what that is I send out a mix to an artist. They say they want more reverb in the chorus. Let's say that takes a couple days to get back to me. I already changed over the console to a brand new mix. How do I make those adjustments? Do I have to completely abandon my console, reset everything back up, and then make the revisions and then record it all down? The short answer is no. There is a much easier way to do this, and I'm going to show you that entire process today in a real life scenario. Before I show you what is going on inside of the computer, inside of Pro Tools, I wanted to show you all the gear that I have patched and are what we are going to record down today behind me. Kick drum on the Manley, 808 Tube Tech, 808 Voice of God, Guitar 1 on the Mag, Snare 2's got the Jack Joseph Puig Pultec edition, AMS Reverb, 2290 on the lead vocal Tube Tech, lead vocal LA2A, background vocals Neve 33609, lead vocal on my top 1176. We got the 480 EQ right here, Guitar 4, 3, and Guitar 2 on the 550As. Then we've got piano on the TG1 limiter, Snare 1, 1073, strings 1073, background vocals 1073. Piano on my 12411 EQ. The whole mix is going to the Shadow Hills and then to the Curve Bender. I've got piano 2 on my GML, and then the Zener limiter is handling my Mix Bus B. Mix Bus B is basically strings and guitars and some effect stuff that are all being processed as like a group, basically. Just a little bit of compression. So on the console here, I have everything out to about 48 channels. I have 4 extra channels that kind of spilled over for some extra effects, and then I have about 18 channels of various extras and effects on the left side of the console. You can see on the desk, I'm using all 6 of my auxes. I've got a bunch of EQ going. I don't think I have dynamics on the console on this mix, but you can see how most everything has Mix A on it. I have my guitars, piano 2, some bells, strings, and string effects all going to that Mix B bus that's being processed by that Chandler Zener limiter. When it comes to recording down and backing up this entire mix, basically how I like to do it is I like to record every single individual channel that I'm using on the console directly after that fader. So basically what's happening is Pro Tools is sending output to each fader. I'm mixing that, EQing that, adding effects, all that stuff, automation with the fader. And then I set up a brand new set of tracks that the input of those tracks are each individual fader. And then we just record everything down all at once. I'll show you that entire process. So inside my session here, here's Pro Tools. This is the mix. I have, I always get a lot of comments about how big my waveforms are and that I'm probably mixing, everything's distorted and compressed. But it's just the size of the waveforms, which you can adjust in Pro Tools. This is how it would kind of normally look. And this is all great, but I like to have my tracks really small. And you can tell it's kind of hard to see like little things sometimes. Like, is there anything on this track right here? I don't know. I'd have to kind of zoom in. So I know that nothing's distorted within the session. I've checked all that stuff beforehand. So what I do is I just set it to the max. And now I just have a really easy representation of where all the stuff is and how to get to it and all that stuff. So we're going to scroll down to the bottom of this mix. Here you see I have this BU mark. So this is backup marker. This is a marker I put in every session that, that shows all the individual tracks that are like my backup tracks. So basically these channels are a direct copy of the channels that are on the console. I've got my double vocals, my low, my mid, my highs. Then we've got drums, we've got steel, guitar, vocals, my lead vocal, my parallel vocal. Here's my guitars, 1, 2, 3, and that mono fourth. We've got some pianos, bells, percussion, effects, piano effects. And then we have this effects marker. So this marker I use to separate the actual input channels and the effects. So we've got vocal verb, bell delay. These are probably coming out of Pro Tools. Vocal delay, that's another Pro Tools. And then here's our analog stuff. So our AMS delay, 2290. This would be our Bricastes, 1, 2, 3. And then this is the mix bus B. So that's where the guitar, the keys, the strings are coming from. This seems like a lot of information, but once I have this outlined and I know it's correct and I test it and I listen to it and just make sure that all the channels line up, all I have to do is go in here. We're gonna hit input monitor, input monitor. Now if we push play, you will see that we have signal on all these channels. We're not seeing any faders moving, there's no automation happening, so I need to turn on the automation as if we were listening back to the mix. How I'm going to do that is this panel right here. So if I hit this SSL button, and then I go to our automation tab, which is auto right here, these are all the different mixes that are within this project. So I would select the last final version that we have, so I'll select Final 07. And then we hit this protect button. Now across all the channels it says safe, and there's a little green LED. That basically means that those channels are safe. If I accidentally touch them or something happens, it doesn't matter. It's not going to screw up the automation. It's kind of like a read mode within Pro Tools. So once we've checked all our channels, everything is fine, everything's great. Now I'm going to take away protect and hit execute. Heard some faders move. So let's go to the beginning of the song and make sure that all our faders work. Great. You see them coming up and down. So one of the things I do is I try to automate the faders so that if nothing's playing, I do this at the very end of the mix. If nothing's playing, I'll automate those faders down until right before they come into the position that I had them in. Just helps a little bit with noise floor overall across the entire mix. All right, so channels are ready. We've got everything ready to record. The only thing we're missing is mix bus B. Mix bus B is down here, and right now it's set to 99-100. So we have 129 inputs in the studio. I'd like to use 99 and 100 for anything that I need to record back into Pro Tools as far as like a stereo pair. So at the top of the session, you can see I've got this Final 07, and it's the same input. It's 99-100. Anytime I'm recording the mix down before I send it off to a client, it is always assigned to mix bus A, which is my primary mix bus, going out to 99-100, which is that input, and that is how I record it. I have mix bus B down here set up to the same input. That way, all I really need to do to record that down is just swap over that patch, which I'm going to do right now. So now that that is patched, I can go ahead and hit the input here, go to a random part in the song, and make sure that I'm getting the correct input on that mix B. Now that we know we're good, I'm going to select the full mix that I recorded down earlier. I'm going to make sure the correct things are record enabled. Make sure everything is ready to go. Seems good. And now we just hit record and let it play through. So now every single channel is bounced down. It's saved inside of Pro Tools. The only thing left that I have to do is route my outputs accordingly and just repatch my mastering chain to go to the Shadow Hills mastering compressor, the curve bender, the Fusion on the console, the vintage drive, and then straight to an external so I can make those adjustments inside of Pro Tools and bounce it down again. So when this whole process is done and I need to make a revision, nothing technically comes to the faders on the console anymore. All the rest of the changes are usually volume changes. We might change a reverb here or there, and I'll use a little bit of the console, something like that. But typically it's more automation based or changing tones of stuff, and I'll try to do that as much inside of Pro Tools as I possibly can. I take one more step to ensure that I have everything backed up and ready to go. I take pictures with my phone of every single piece of gear. So I go through and try to get the best photo I can of every single piece of gear, and then I take a picture of the reverb settings inside of the Lexicon, the AMS, and the 2290. That way, in a worst case scenario where I completely need to restructure everything and my backup didn't work, I can get the mix up through the Total Recall on the console, and then go through my pictures, repatch all the gear. We're really good in the studio of keeping handwritten patch lists. So those are always on record and on file for every single client. And all this media, all these photos and these lists, everything that we have goes into a folder inside of that project folder. So one of the cool things that we do here is if you were an artist that hired me to mix the song and we mixed it more this kind of analog way, once we're completely done with the mix, you get a copy of that folder with the patching sheet, pictures of all the gear, a picture with your name on the console, and then I always send a quick video where I dim the lights and put these little fancy lights on the console and just give you your song playing back. That way they can use it on social media channels or just to have as kind of like a keepsake. Because the majority of the artists that we get here don't actually get to come to the studio and listen to their mix. We send it off to them and they listen to it in their own studio or on their own speakers. And that wraps up this video on how we back up sessions, how we prepare for making revisions, and what we give to a client is kind of like a fun little bonus. I will see you next time, friend. Peace.